It is time. It is Lettermen Live time, presented by Wendy's. It's a weekly thing we do here at Lettermen Row, and we're happy to be here to talk Ohio State, Tennessee, to talk the college football playoff, to talk Ross Bjork's comments from Thursday. It's Spencer Holbrook. It's the 41-year vet, Tim May. Tim, how are you?
I'm doing well. I did 3 hours of radio this morning with my buddy Bo Bishop. Doing some talking. Now I'm ready to do some more talking for some reason.
Well, we can't get you to stop talking. I think that's
exactly
that's part of the fun,
deal.
Right? I'm staying warm. I don't have heat in my house right now. That'll be fixed on Saturday. But on Friday, work never stops. So I will talk Ohio State football. That should light my fire because my wood's not wet. So it'll light my fire. There we go.
Yeah.
You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs. Take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're a real heat seeker, try the spicy ghost pepper only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. I dare you. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you, Tim May, and myself already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's. They're participating U.S. Wendy's. Lettermen Live, as always, is presented by Wendy's. We've been doing it on Thursdays. Now we'll do it on Fridays. We're going to talk Ohio State, Tennessee again. We're going to talk.
By the way,
like I said, go ahead, Tim.
I like the garlic parm. Is my favorite.
Yeah.
Go ahead now.
Go. Yeah, I like the garlic parm too. My parents are big garlic parm fans too. If you're watching, Mom and Dad, go get some of those Wendy's saucy nugs. We'll talk Ross Bjork's comments. We'll talk college football playoff. We'll be here for about 45 minutes. We won't go the full length of the hour. Tim's been talking too much already anyway.
Yeah.
Tim, let's start. We'll finish with the college football playoff. Let's talk about Ross Bjork's comments. So Ross Bjork, if you haven't seen, was on 97.1 The Fans Morning Juice on Thursday morning with Bobby Carpenter. And was it Tito?
Yes.
Yeah.
Jeff Didoff.
Yeah, with Bobby and Tito. And it was a good conversation. They talked about the new women's basketball contract for Kevin McGuff. They talked about NIL and legislation with NIL in the state of Ohio. They talked about that bogus bill that's not going anywhere in the state legislature about making flag planting a felony, which was, of course, bogus. We won't even talk about that. But more importantly, Tim, they talked about the in-game atmosphere at the Horseshoe for the first round of the college football playoff, and they talked about Ryan Day's job security with Ross Bjork. Let's start with the in-game stuff because I think the game kind of goes hand in hand or hat in hand, I guess, with Ryan Day's job security in a way. Ross Bjork said that they don't have full control over everything in the Horseshoe because it's an NCAA tournament event, which is interesting that it's not really an NCAA event, but the college football playoff tournament event. So like Tennessee gets a pregame hype video when they run out of the tunnel, like it's a neutral site. There's a lot of signage in the Horseshoe that has to be covered up. The Buckeyes don't control the music that goes on in the stadium, but they do control some things during timeouts, some things pregame. What did you make of all of that? I think that it's going to be interesting to see the light show. Ross Bjork said there's going to be a drone show. So there's some interesting new aspects coming to the Horseshoe. What are you expecting from the atmosphere there next Saturday, Tim? Because I thought it was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, by the way, as I quipped on radio this morning, I think they're practicing the drone show in New Jersey right now to get ready for that halftime or that game extravaganza. I expect something other than just your average run-of-the-mill. And by run-of-the-mill, still one of the great things, Ohio State pregame show and halftime show, because it deserves it. I'm not clear. I think the Tennessee band is coming. I'm not clear on that. But if it does, I expect to hear Rocky Top at least 50 times during the game, some length version of Rocky Top. I remember when Ohio State, covering that game when Ohio State played Tennessee the only other time in the Citrus Bowl in 1996 Citrus Bowl 95 season. I bet they played Rocky Top 10,000 times. It was crazy. Because, SEC bands, they play right up almost to the snap sometimes, even though I think they're supposed to quit with a certain amount of seconds left on the play clock. But the bottom line is I expect it to be, as much as they can make it, a fairly neutral atmosphere in terms of, well, if this team gets that, then this team gets that.
Yeah.
But past that, it's still going to be I know everybody's ruminating about how many Tennessee fans are going to be there. I would guess 10 to 20% of the stadium could be Tennessee fans. Who knows? Maybe more. The tickets are reasonable even on the aftermarket right now, the secondary market. So I would think Tennessee fans are, first time Tennessee's ever played in the Horseshoe, ever played in Ohio Stadium. I would expect them to show up for all kinds of reasons. But the main thing is they have a hell of a following, just like Buckeye Nation. Not as big as Buckeye Nation, but staunch nonetheless. And so I would expect it to, I wouldn't expect it to be crickets. Let me put it that way. When Ohio State has the ball, which is where you judge fandom and home field advantages. So that's what I expect. It's a national tournament game, not a Ohio State true home game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting. Bjork talked about Tennessee fans buying some tickets. I don't think that Ohio State is concerned that Tennessee is going to have a 50-50 split, but Vols fans are definitely making the trip. I expect, let's call it 80-20. Would you think is fair? I think that's probably
10 to 20% Tennessee, so that'd be about right.
Yeah, I'd say 80-20 or 15, which would still put it at about 20,000 to 25,000 Tennessee fans in the stadium. That's not going to surprise me at all, and I honestly don't think that's a terrible thing because it's a playoff game, so it's harder to keep the tickets to Ohio State fans, just and plus the debacle on Ticketmaster where the season ticket holder code got leaked to Tennessee fans, that made it to where Tennessee fans were able to go buy some tickets. And I don't think it's really an issue, but I do think it's interesting that Tennessee fans truly believe they're going to take over the Horseshoe. I think that is a pretty dumb take because I just don't think that's going to happen.
Well, they did. Davy Crockett, the Volunteers did go to the Alamo way back when. Of course, they didn't go back home, but so who knows, man? Vol fans are, they could be right out there, and I'm not sure anybody right now is projecting Tennessee to win the national championship, but this may be their shot. And like I said, when you had the novelty of playing in Ohio Stadium, and you think about the weather in and around the game, the 2 days leading up to it, how many people who bought tickets even from the Ohio State side might bail and put them on the aftermarket, remains to be seen. And the students, I think, am I right? Are in the semester going to be over for the students and stuff? So we'll see how many students are even involved from an Ohio State standpoint.
Well, my take on the student thing is that there are enough students in the state who will want to be at the game regardless. And so okay. I believe that the students will be very rowdy and very ready.
Okay.
And Ohio State students prove me right. How about that?
There you go.
I think it's going to be awesome. I think it will be one of the great settings, and maybe I'm just caught in the moment, and that's very much a possibility. You've been to a lot of great settings for college football. I think all four of these venues, Austin at DKR,
yep,
Happy Valley at Beaver Stadium, Notre Dame Stadium, and the Horseshoe, will show us four of the greatest settings in the history of college football next weekend.
Iconic venues in their own rights.
And not only are they iconic venues, but they're hosting such a new and novelty concept. There has never in college football history, other than smaller conference championship games, been home games in the postseason. It is a completely foreign concept to the Big Ten and the SEC, and I know the ACC and Big 12 aren't hosting them this time around, but it's a complete novelty concept and a foreign ordeal for these teams of this magnitude to be hosting postseason games.
Correct.
For 100 years, we've thrown them into these sterile NFL or neutral environments, and instead now we're throwing them into these powder keg, college towns. And I think I can't swear on this show, so I'll just say I think it's freaking awesome. It is going to be fantastic. And whether there's 20,000 Tennessee fans there or 20 Tennessee fans there, That place is going to be absolutely rocking for an 8 p.m. start on Saturday night.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I just, I told you where I've stood many times on this. I'd rather see Ohio State playing in a dome in the middle of December where the conditions are under control, because I think Ohio State is built for that kind of environment. I don't think the weather favors either team. Weather conditions would favor either team in this environment, because Ohio State has played 2 games in cold weather this whole year. You know what I mean? I'm talking about in the 30s or below. So, it is what it is at this point. I think the main reason they went with home field for the first 4 games, one of the main reasons is to make sure they do get a crowd. If this game was in, where could it be? Louisville, let's say, that's driving distance for both teams, easy driving distance. It'd be interesting to see how many people showed up, et cetera. But it is what it is now. It's 2 great programs meeting for just a second time in history. They've tried to meet before, but those games got canceled in the regular season. So, it's worth it just to see these 2 teams play, man. The only other time you got to see them was in a bowl game, and the final was 20-14 or 21-14. And on one side was Peyton Manning, on the other side was Eddie George, one of the more talented rosters in Ohio State football history, coming off a loss to Michigan, lost to Tim Biakabatuka in Michigan, and now here's your rematch. Tennessee has won 1 national championship since that game with Peerless Price and T. Martin in that group in 1998, and Ohio State has won 2 in 2002 and 2014. Tennessee, it's hard to believe Tennessee, I think the last time they won an SEC championship might have been 2005 or something like that. So 2007. So they've been hungry for any kind of red meat, and so they've got their shot at it.
Would you call it scarlet meat?
Yeah, scarlet meat would make more sense in this setting. But scarlet is red, so final answer, red scarlet meat.
Okay, final answer. Sounds good, Tim. And this is it's a good transition to get to the other home games in the college football playoff, but we'll talk about day first. So Ross Bjork was asked in that interview on 97.1 The Fans Morning Juice. Make sure we give the credit to the guys who conducted that thing, because I thought it was really informative. It was 20 good minutes there. Go listen to it if you haven't. He kind of confirmed what he had said earlier about Ryan Day's job status. The pull quote there, I think the most interesting part of what he said was, Coach Day is awesome. He's great to work with. He totally gets it. He loves being a Buckeye, and we're going to support him at the highest level throughout. But here's the thing, too, and the reason we needed to say something after that, of course, he's talking about the Michigan game, that game, is that we're still breathing. They're still alive. The season's not over. The book is not closed, right? And so we've got to have confidence. Ohio State should be confident every day we're Ohio State. But we also have to make sure we stay to our values and stick to what we believe in. And so to me, it's the process as much as it is about the end result. That is about as definitive, Tim, as you can get in defending the guy who is currently under a lot of pressure from this fan base to win games, especially after the 4th straight loss to Michigan, an inexplicable loss to an undermatched rival. What did you make of that quote from Ross Bjork?
That Ryan Day is his guy. Yeah. We all know that. We also know that tomorrow is not promised. You know what I mean? As they say in church, tomorrow is not promised in terms of, you know me, man. You know how much I like Ryan Day. Ryan Day, is the head coach of Ohio State, as far as I'm concerned, down the road in perpetuity almost. There can be strange things that happen. I don't think enough has happened for him to ever be thinking about losing his job after this game. But you know how things go, man. Number one, this is a playoff game. Ohio State has won nothing of substance. You could say the Rose Bowl, the great comeback win in the Rose Bowl, the 2021 season, 2022 Rose Bowl. You could say that, but they've won no hardware since 2020. And That's a long time without gold pants, without a Big Ten championship trophy, and obviously without a national championship trophy. Although we all know a couple of years ago how close they were to that. But you know what? Close but no cigar. So you know how it works. If all of a sudden there's some kind of just wipeout against Tennessee, and you know the donors, for one of another term. I'm trying to think of another term you can throw in there for donors, but it goes for people who contribute to NIL as well as, the athletic department, and everything else. If enough of them line up and say, you know what, this ain't working, and their money goes elsewhere, money talks and BS walks in this realm. Yeah. Now, with that said, I don't expect that to happen.
No,
I don't expect that to happen. I think you got to sit back and understand what kind of man you've got in Ryan Day. Forget about coach. What kind of man you've got in Ryan Day. They just put out their press release this week about a record number of academic achievements by this particular football team. On top of that, you've got a football program right now, and much of this is to do with Mark Pantoni, but also Ryan Day is at the bulwark, is at the tip of the spear. That's doing great things in the transfer portal, both going and coming. You know what I mean? Because you got to have a two-way street there. Number one. Number two, doing great things in recruiting. I mean, everything else as far as this program is concerned checks the boxes. But you've lost 4 straight to your Big Ten rival, to your longtime rival, which has kept you from playing for the Big Ten championship 4 straight years. So it's not just they've lost 4 games to Michigan and they haven't won a Big Ten championship. The fact they've lost 4 straight games to Michigan has kept them from playing for a Big Ten championship. So it's a little more important than just it's another game. You follow my drift there. Yeah. So I would think, but Ross has got to stand by his man. He does like Ryan Day. I've talked to him several times about Ryan Day. I had him on the Tim May show back before the season started, and of course, the pressure was on even then about what this program or this football team had to kind of get done and what was expected of them, but how really far-fetched it is to really put just championship or bust expectations on a coaching staff and on a football team. With that said, yeah, that loss to Michigan is still slightly inexplicable to me. So There you go. There's the rub.
Here's the thing, Tim. This is going to sound, and I don't.
Wait a minute, I got 10 more minutes to go. No, I'm just joking.
Here's the thing. This is going to sound, and I do not want it to sound like this, but there's only one way to bring it up. It does sound the way that it does, and that's fine. Okay. But it's not me. It's not me defending Ryan Day at all or making an excuse for Ryan Day. I think we are in a time in college football that is very awkward for a lot of people. They're trying to determine what matters, and I'm not devaluing the Michigan game one bit. The Michigan game is important. It will not change. But we are living in a world where you no longer have to beat Michigan to win the national championship. It's just the fact. Ohio State just lost to Michigan, and it's still hosting a college football playoff home game. You no longer have to win the Big Ten to win the national championship. That used to be a prerequisite, no questions asked. If you didn't win the Big Ten, there was no way they were going to vote for you, and there was no way that you were going to get into the dance. Where Ohio State got in twice with that, but it obviously was not able to win a national championship. Right now, Ohio State can lose games and get into the college football playoff. That is hard for people to grasp because we've had a system for 130 years since Rutgers and Princeton kicked off in 1869 where you had to win every game, no matter what. You no longer have to win every game. The other aspect of that is Oregon has won every game in the Big Ten this year, right?
Yes.
Ohio State and the rest of the Big Ten, and then even in the SEC, added very good programs, and its fan bases didn't adjust expectations. And I'm not saying that you should have expected Ohio State to lose to Oregon, but the consequences of the SEC adding a Texas and an Oklahoma is that Kentucky, instead of getting to face South Carolina every year, now might have to play Texas once every 3 years, and that's an extra loss for them instead of a winnable game. Ohio State, instead of playing Illinois this year in part of its 9-game conference schedule, all of a sudden you're throwing an Oregon in there, and that's a losable game more than some of these other conference opponents that you're so used to facing are. The schedules are harder than they were. And the Michigan game, I don't excuse with that because you have to play Michigan hell or high water unless, of course, they fake COVID and cancel the game.
True.
But if this Ohio State team was 11-1 with a loss to Michigan heading into the College Football Playoff, you'd probably still be like, okay, you lost to Michigan, but you can win the national championship. And that would have come with, like, let's say a win over Minnesota because you would have had them in the schedule instead of Oregon. Well, now you're throwing harder teams to beat into the schedule mix, but still expecting the same record every year. And I think I'm not saying that I am vouching for Day, and I want to keep saying that. But I think part of the conversation is it is an awkward time to be a fan in college football because in a world where you're so used to having to go 12-0 to reach your goals, you no longer have to. And that's a hard thing to grasp, especially in the first year of the new system. Am I off base there?
No, I mean, that's the way it is. That's the SEC teams think they can lose 3 games and still make the playoffs.
Yeah,
so,
no kidding.
I mean, no, and when it goes to 16 teams, which is going to, probably going to move to 14 first. I don't know why they would even stop there. They got this idea you got to give at least a couple of teams a bye. I don't agree with that at all. Give them an easier opponent, but a bye, forget it. No, it's. I mean, I think modern fans understand what's up, but they also understand you've lost 4 straight games to your arch rival, and you haven't played for a Big Ten championship. Now, in the old days, when I first started covering Ohio State football back in 1984, and then obviously before that, there was no Big Ten championship game. Ohio State won. Ohio State is still the only team to win the Big Ten championship outright with 2 losses in the season without a Big Ten championship game. So that was back in 1984, the first year I started covering them. Talk about an oddball way to get into it. But with conferences going to with the Big Ten possibly moving to 20 teams. Maybe sooner rather than later, we'll see the shakeout. And then down the line from that, a conference championship game is probably more important in that environment than it is now, but it's probably going to go away because if you have 16 teams in the playoff, why would you make teams play in conference championship games except for what they were first invented for, which was to make money, more money for the conference. And now, of course, they make a lot of money for at least the big conferences. But but this idea that you can still have a committee that can decide definitively that Alabama with 3 losses still played a tougher schedule than SMU with 2 losses, none in their new conference, which is the ACC in the regular season, and 1 in the ACC championship game, make some kind of valid argument that Alabama should be in a playoff and SMU not. Thank goodness this committee made up of human beings said, no, this is not a great Alabama team. You got beat. You scored 3 points on the road against a mediocre Oklahoma team. You got beat by Vanderbilt, squarely got beat by Vanderbilt on the road and lost 1 other game to Tennessee, by the way. Why in your right mind, why do you think you should be in a college football playoff, except that you've recruited well and the potential is there? Well, there's a lot of people that can make that argument. So you're never going to put, in college football, you're never going to put an end to the arguments about I got screwed. This team got rewarded and my team got screwed. You're never going to end those arguments. That's been going on in college football ever since they invented the polls. The Associated Press or UPI invented the polls way back when. So, but at least now they're not mythical national championships, or not as mythical as they were when they first started. And so you're always going to have arguments. You're not going to please everybody. No way, any form or fashion, unless you have like a 64 team playoff. And really, who wants that?
Yeah. So I just think I think it was a good way to put a pin in it. I just think that the Ross Bjork comments will either look like the biggest pie in the face comment of all time, because if they lose to Tennessee and people grow restless and things happen, then we'll look at Ross Bjork's comments and say, well, that didn't turn out to be true. Or,
well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. You know this. You've been around, Spence. You never want to say never, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as much as you and I like Ryan Day, as much as I like dealing with Ryan Day on a day-to-day basis, is, you know, all kinds of reasons why you like Ryan Day. You never want to say never about anything. But the other thing, the other elephant in the room is the buyout for Ryan Day. People haven't wrapped their head around how much money that is. I don't care if it's paid out over 10 years. It's a big chunk of cash to take out for, number one, a guy who's 69-10 or 68-10, whatever is 66-10, whatever his record is at Ohio State. He has won a Big Ten championship, and yes, exactly, a couple of them. And but that's just ridiculous money just because you don't beat one particular team to write off a Ryan Day. And then, like I always pose the question, well, who are you going to get? I mean, if you do something like that, you've got to have a big-time name in mind. And who has proven, the big-time names in mind, who has proven that they will, in any kind of thought in your head, that they're going to get done against Michigan what Ryan Day hasn't gotten done to the satisfaction of many people so far. But of course, you know, you could say, well, give them a shot. You know, that would be more the thing. It wouldn't be going, well, this guy's going to lead the team to win over Michigan because of what reason, right? You can't give one. But it was good just because I have a gut feel. Okay, well, then go with that. But Ohio State, like I said, is doing a lot of things right with its football program, and you'd look kind of stupid, in my opinion, if you pulled the plug on Ryan Day just because a team that was looked at by many as a dream team, things didn't come together. That is by far not the first time that has happened throughout college football history.
Yeah, and here's the bottom line, Tim. Which is where we will officially end this conversation and get on to the college football playoff. The last coach to be fired, which I think he just resigned for losing to Michigan, was Wes Fessler. I mean, everybody thinks John Cooper was fired for going 2-10-1. He wasn't fired for going 2-10-1 against Michigan.
Nope.
John Cooper was fired because he went 6-6 and 8-4, and they said that's not good enough.
But he also exactly.
I mean, the Michigan.
And there was also a sense then you had to be there that he had lost a little bit of control of his program by some things that were going on behind the scenes. And Andy Geiger, who had made him one of the top 5 paid coaches in the country several years earlier, just said the time was then to make a change. As it turned out, you know, because you know me and John Cooper. I like John Cooper. I played golf with him a few times a year if we can make it happen. Didn't get to make it happen this year, but the bottom line is, yeah, sometimes you do need a shake up in the program. So that was what that was about.
So my point there is John Cooper wasn't fired for losing to Michigan.
Correct.
Going 10-1 against Michigan was part of the equation, but it was more so 6-6, 8-4 than it was losing to Michigan. Earl Bruce wasn't fired for losing to Michigan. In fact, they won the last game he ever coached.
He had a winning record.
He had a winning record against Michigan. He was not fired for losing to Michigan. He was fired for a lack of production, you know, with the whole program. Woody Hayes wasn't fired for his record against Michigan, which he was part of the war, of course. He's part of those teams that were really good, Ohio State and Michigan. So his record's a little different, which –
yeah, well, I want to make sure people understand. Woody Hayes lost his last 3 games to Michigan. His last 3 games, Ohio State scored 0 touchdowns against Michigan, but there was no intent to fire him at the end of the 78 season. The Gator Bowl experience exacerbated the situation through fuel on the fire, so to speak.
So I would compare Ryan Day's record against Michigan far more, how do I say this, to Woody Hayes. No, to Woody Hayes than I would John Cooper, because John Cooper was losing to Michigan teams that he shouldn't have lost to. Ryan Day just finally lost to one that he shouldn't have, but the previous 3 were all college football playoff teams. So it's like Ryan's been going up against really good Michigan teams.
Well, John Cooper went up against really good Michigan teams also. I mean,
yeah, but he also went
that's not entirely accurate, is what I'm saying. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's it's interesting. It's hard to compare things. So all of that it's an interesting conversation to have. If Ohio State loses to Tennessee, the conversations will heat up even more. Let's just say Ohio State doesn't lose to Tennessee, though, and gets to go to the Rose Bowl. The college football playoff bracket is officially set. With a win over Tennessee a week from Saturday, the Buckeyes will be headed to Pasadena to face the top-seeded Oregon Ducks in the Rose Bowl in a classic rematch from October. And now is the time to start thinking about travel arrangements with Reynolds Travel, the go-to headquarters for Buckeye Bowl travel for 50 years. Reynolds Travel is ready to take you to the heart of the quarterfinal playoff action. Reynolds packages feature round-trip air transportation from Columbus, deluxe hotel accommodations, transfers from the airport, the Buckeye Bash events, and game travel, as well as game tickets, all under the eye of Reynolds' seasoned event staff. They're always on hand to make your bowl game travels memorable and carefree. For those of you traveling to LA on your own without Reynolds Travel to help you with airfare, you can still get on the Buckeye playoff action by selecting a hotel package that includes all the features I just mentioned, exclusive of the air travel with Reynolds Travel. Visit reynoldstravel.com in the coming days for complete details or call 866-880-0577. That's 866-880-0577, or just visit reynoldstravel.com. Go get your Ohio State Rose Bowl packages now, because it's going to be awesome if Ohio State beats Tennessee and gets to go play in the Rose Bowl in that 2010 Rose Bowl rematch against, well, it's more of a 2024 regular season rematch against the Oregon Ducks in the Rose Bowl. We'll see if that comes to fruition, Tim. Yeah. What is going to come to fruition, Tim, is me having Wendy's saucy nugs. You know it, folks. You've been here way too many times. You know the drill, but in case you have forgotten, you've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, Tim May's favorite, the garlic parm, or if you're a real heat seeker, like G Money is in the comments, that you're going to try the spicy ghost pepper, only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. That's 7 delicious ways to enjoy the nugs you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's, a participating U.S. Wendy's. Tim, remember last week when we played the game, we used the scale, the sauciness scale? I've got a really saucy take for you. I think it's a spicy ghost pepper take, because we're going to play the Wendy's sauce scale. You tell me if it's a Wendy's saucy take or not.
All right.
I think Clemson's going to beat Texas next week.
I do not concur.
But you think that's a really hot take? You think that's a spicy ghost pepper?
Yeah, that would be that's a spicy take. I would say if you're trying to increase our viewership too, you got forward this to Clemson, South Carolina, and all points southeast of there. But no, I think Clemson had its moment for the 2024 season by winning the ACC championship game. I see a lot of problems with Clemson stopping Quinn Ewers and Texas's offense. And I think Texas's defense is going to hold sway in that game anyway. So I disagree with that 100%, which means I will be wrong.
Well, we'll see. I just think that the Texas offense is not exactly what a lot of us really think it is. I don't think it's as potent. The receivers with Quinn Ewers as a quarterback, they just don't seem to be like clicking the way that you would think a Sark offense is. And I know giving Sark a few weeks to prepare is a dangerous proposition, but like there's only 2 coaches in this thing that have national championships. And I know that one of them is far less talented than the national championship teams he won with. But like, I just feel like Dabo's got something in him that gets his team ready for these kind of games.
Okay.
And it's not going to surprise me if they go into DKR and at least put a real scare into Texas. I think they'll at least put a scare into the Longhorns.
Yeah, it's playoff, man. It's a conference champion against a team that didn't win the conference. No, I'm not saying they're out of place. I just think Texas will hold sway because I think Texas is a better team right now. So that's where I go.
Yeah, so maybe I do have a spicy take. I've got one more for you, another take. I think the talk about Penn State, because we're here to just talk about the whole bracket. Next week, we'll obviously really dive in to this Ohio State-Tennessee matchup on Lettermen Live presented by Wendy's. Come get that coverage because that's going to be awesome to talk to you about it. but we're doing the full bracket here. I think the idea that Penn State has a easy path to the semifinal is completely bogus. Everybody talks about the fact that Penn State was rewarded for losing the Big Ten championship with the 6th seed, because then they get to play the 11th seed in SMU and then the 6th seed or the 3 seed in Boise State.
Yeah.
But you talk about having to beat an SMU team that knows how to win games, and then also going and facing the most physically demanding singular player we've seen in college football, I think, since like Derrick Henry, because he is so hard to bring down that like you are going to get beat up whether you make the semifinal or not. Like by the time Penn State gets to that semifinal, like they're going to really know that they played two football games, because not only do you have to play Penn to play SMU and take their best shot, but then you've got to go tackle for 60 minutes Ashton Genty just to get to the semifinal. I just think that path, even though I do think they're going to get there, I think that path is much more difficult and physically demanding than people are realizing.
Well, number one, I think Boise State's defense is a little bit underrated by some folks based on the way it's played this year. But number two, there's Boise State with Ashton Genty and Boise State without him. And my point is they didn't play and I like Ashton Genty. He was on my top 3 Heisman ballot. Can't reveal who I voted for until
don't say it.
1, 2, 3 until afterward. Might not even do it then, if I look too stupid. But the bottom line is Penn State, in my opinion, Penn State is better built to play against Boise State than it is against SMU. That sounds funny or stupid, right? But SMU, if the weather is permitting, SMU is going to throw the ball all over the lot. They've got some real electrifying kind of players at wide receiver. Their quarterback I really like a lot. And the blessing for Penn State is the fact they're hosting that game. SMU is going to be playing in front of 3 times as many people as maybe they've ever played in front of. Well, definitely in home games. And so the weather is going to be what the weather is going to be. I think a bad weather day would be just as tough on Penn State's offense as it would be on SMU's offense. With Drew Aller, kind of an up and down guy, but boy, the way they hung in there against Oregon the other night was very interesting to me. The way they came to play, let's put it that way, to the bell. So, but I think on paper, I would look at it as, Penn State has an interesting path to the semifinals, because as much as I like the Boise State quarterback and the way he runs things, they are a fairly more one-dimensional team than even SMU is. And number two, I think Penn State will score on their defense. So I think I would disagree with your hot take again.
That's fine. I just don't think that I just don't think it's going to be as easy for Penn State as everybody else thinks.
No, it's a playoff game. It's a tournament, man.
I mean, did they get the easiest draw? Maybe. Depending on what you think of Clemson and Arizona State as a draw, which I also think if Texas gets through that 2-game stretch against a Clemson team that, if nothing else, is going to be physically demanding, and then an Arizona State team where you literally have to just tackle a bowling ball for 60 minutes in Cam Scatteraboo.
Yeah, that guy, man.
Like, you want to talk about a violent running back? Like, that guy will run through a you-know-what's face.
But SMU's going to have to deal with our favorite tight end. What's his name?
Tyler Warren.
Yeah, Tyler Warren. I'm telling you, that he's still underrated, in my opinion.
Second best tight end in America.
Yeah. I mean, good thing Denzel Burke shoved him out of bounds at whatever it was, the 2 or 3 yard line, and then he doesn't touch the ball. They won 4 straight downs for now they did want to throw to him on that 4th down play, but it was that Lathan Ransom jumped him and they had to go over the middle, and Caleb Downs, All-American, by the way, consensus now, it looks like All-American safety Caleb Downs made the play on that play. But yeah, I think Tyler Warren it could be the real difference in Penn State SMU without a doubt.
Yeah, I think so too.
I said I think, and then I said without a doubt. Tyler Warren will be the difference in that game without a doubt. There we go.
So let's go to – so we talked a little bit of Penn State. We talked a little bit of Boise State. Let's talk this Notre Dame team. Notre Dame, Indiana. What do you think about this game? Because I think
I'm having a hard time putting this matchup in my head because there's the Indiana that beat Michigan at home, the first real truly physical test Indiana had to keep its undefeated season going, and then gets beat by Ohio State, in my opinion, fairly soundly. I know a couple of special teams plays really flipped that game, but I mean, I thought Ohio State was more than the match for Indiana, like you and I both expected.
Yeah,
man, I'll tell you what, Notre Dame there's just a couple of things in my head I can't get out of my head about Notre Dame. One of which was that loss to Northern Illinois. And I know it was so far long ago. Northern Illinois and Notre Dame are neither one of the same teams that played that day, right? Agreed? Because Northern Illinois kind of fell off the truck there a little bit. So I think this game's a mystery to me. If Indiana can avoid just getting punched in the mouth the first couple of 3-4 times it has the ball and can show some life offensively, I think that game goes into the fourth quarter. You know what I mean? I know I'm jumping around the bush here because that's what's interesting right now with Tennessee. Tennessee, in my opinion, is the second best team Ohio State will have faced this year. I don't know if you agree or not.
Yeah, I think so.
And you know, and they are very similar in a lot of ways to Oregon. They've got really good players, and I don't think they have as many as Oregon does, but you know, that can be thrown in my face in a little while. They do have a freshman quarterback. They paid their dues with having a freshman quarterback who also got banged up in the middle of the year. I know we're going to talk about that later, but my point is, I think some of these games like SMU at Penn State, you think you know what's going to happen, but how much is the weather going to play a factor, and how much is the big crowd going to play a oh my goodness, where are we, factor on SMU? We don't know the answers to that yet, but on paper, SMU is dangerous. Very dangerous because they can throw the ball. Any team that can throw the ball is dangerous. I think Indiana's dangerous because I like Rourke throwing the ball against Notre Dame from what I've seen from Notre Dame. So I give Indiana more of a shot than maybe some people do.
Yeah, I think so too. I do worry that Notre Dame's defensive speed, defensive athleticism, and defensive skill does take over in a mold of like how Ohio State took over in defensively in that game and just blitzed Curtis Rourke and kind of made him see ghosts. I do worry about that with Notre Dame, but I also worry that if Indiana can get them early into a track meet, that I don't know if Notre Dame can catch up. So I'm interested. I'm very intrigued there. I think the potential of a Notre Dame Georgia game would be just fantastic because of the physicality of both of those teams. I think the Texas trying to stop Cam Scadaboo would be fascinating. I think an Ohio State-Oregon rematch would be awesome, but I also think a Tennessee-Oregon showdown would be great to watch if I'm just talking about a fan's viewing perspective.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're an Ohio State show here. I would love to go to the Rose Bowl. I've never been. So, the matchups that could happen in those quarterfinals, depending on what happens here in this first round, I think they're all pretty great. The only one that I think is just like, do we really need this? But I guess we need it to decide a national champion. It's like SMU Boise. Like, I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's the possibility that a couple of these, like, oh, we got cool upsets in the first round, and then you get to that New Year's Day, and you're like, wait a second.
Oh, now you see now.
This is the product of the
now you're talking like an NCAA tournament fan.
Yeah.
You like those underdogs to win in the first two rounds. But when it gets to the Sweet 16, you can't. That's why Michigan State gets in every year, even though Ohio State deserved to get in last year more than Michigan State did in the NCAA tournament. I even told Diebler that. I mean, I just thought Ohio State was penalized for what went on, from a coaching firing standpoint near the end of the year. And because I thought they were a better team than Michigan State was last year. And I'll stand on that. But, it's kind of like you like to have an underdog, a true Cinderella underdog or two in there to give you some kind of rooting interest. But do you really, is your dream semifinal could it be Boise? Could it be Boise State and Arizona State?
No.
What would it be? SMU and Arizona State?
Like if we get like a Boise State.
No, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember the brackets because I'm not looking at them.
The matchup that I really would say.
I'm gonna look up the bracket.
The matchup that I would say no thanks to would be like Notre Dame, Boise State in the semifinal.
Gotcha.
So, or Indiana, Boise State in the semis. We're like, it's like you said, like when Belmont makes it to the Elite Eight, and then all of a sudden it's a 30-point game.
Yeah.
The Elite Eight, and you're like, oh, dang, like this was the Saturday night showcase game, and it's a 40-point game because the upsets that happened before that led to this moment. Which the upsets were awesome, but then when you get to that specific game, eventually the slipper doesn't fit anymore, and you turn back into a pumpkin. So
you're right. It would be Boise State. It would the non-dream scenario for a lot of big time fans would be Boise State and Indiana playing to get to the final. You're exactly right.
Tim, we're gonna wrap up here. A week out.
Wait a minute. We're wrapping up now. We just started.
Yeah, I know. Time flies when you're having fun with the 41-year vet here. Tim, I'm going to give you all 4 matchups. Right now, you're lean on who's going to win. We'll do this again next week and see if any of the answers are different. Let's start Texas and Clemson.
Texas, my lean. That's a heavy lean. It's like a lean with your foot up on a chair leaning.
I'm leaning toward pulling the trigger and picking Clemson.
Okay.
But I don't know if I'll get there fully.
Okay.
So I think by next week, I think you'll have talked me off the Clemson ledge, and I'll be back on the horns.
Clemson won that game, that ACC championship game, with only one play of offense that you could really put your name on in the fourth quarter. It was actually after the great kickoff return, and then Cade Klubnik throws one pass over the middle. Intermediate middle, they call timeout and kick the field goal or whatever. I think there was a timeout involved there. They're not going to be able to get by with that against Texas.
Yeah, you might be right, and you might be already talking me off of that ledge. Okay, let's go SMU at Penn State.
Man, I tell you what, I want to pick SMU really because I'm a fan not only a little bit of the underdog. This is a better SMU team from a personnel standpoint than most people think. They had a bad first half against Clemson, which put them behind the 8 ball. I'm telling you, I like the way they throw the ball. I'm stammering now. I'm just for the fun of it, I'm going to go with SMU. That's my lean because I have a weird feel about that game.
You also are a ball knower who doesn't care for James Franklin in big games.
No, I don't dislike James Franklin at all. I think they just haven't gotten the brass ring, under James Franklin. But, dude, there's no denying they put competitive football teams, upper-level competitive football teams on the field basically throughout his tenure.
The good news for James Franklin is they don't have to face a true, what the committee deems as a top, 7 team until they get to the semifinal. So I'm going to go with Penn State here, and eventually they're going to lose because they'll face a team that is
just a little bit better.
A James Franklin experienced team, and they'll lose. I don't think SMU is the team to beat them. Which, by the way, Vols fan 98, you're in the crowd right now. Thanks for being here. Bring some Tennessee fans along. We talk Buckeyes ball, but we like to cater to everybody.
Hey, by the way, there was one guy on the messages there who said, "I don't want to hear any more. Well, who are you going to get?" I understand exactly what he's talking about, because as I explained when we were talking. I'm talking about, in fact, if something were to go down with Ryan Day. But I understand what he's talking about is, well, maybe you give somebody else a shot is more of the deal, But I'm just talking about from a practical standpoint, who's sitting out there who isn't retired from football that you think truly would make a difference compared to right now? Do you throw everything? That's what my point I was making. Do you throw everything else away, including the staff? Who knows, the support staff, just because you haven't beaten your rival in 4 years? You see what I'm saying? I'm not sure that's the way you should do it in this modern climate of major college football, when you can still get to the tournament and win the national championship.
Tim,
but I'm not knocking that guy because I know exactly what he meant.
Who do you got, Tim? Indiana or Notre Dame?
I'm going to go with Notre Dame. When they finally figured out with the quarterback who transferred from Duke, yeah, when they finally figured out what he could do best and run him down the line, I think their defense really comes to play. There have been a few exceptions this year. I just think they've got more going for them, just all the way around, comparing just the two teams, the two rosters. So I'm going to always go with the team with the best roster, especially if it's playing at home. Notre Dame, final answer.
Yeah, I'm going to go Notre Dame. I think that defense is just a little too good. And the last time I watched Indiana play a good defense was against Ohio State, and the time before that was against Michigan. That offense struggled in both of those games.
Yes.
I'm going to go with Notre Dame in a low-scoring affair. I'll go with Notre Dame. And then finally, what's your lean as of Friday early afternoon on Ohio State?
My lean's to Ohio State. Number one, it's got the home field advantage. We'll see how much orange is in the crowd. It will stand out. It will look like the opening of hunting season to a certain extent, I'm sure. Number one, did you see that guy that went off on Tennessee? It's a great video on YouTube where he just went off on Tennessee for all kinds of reasons, including, Texas has got that kind of warm, fuzzy feeling, kind of warm orange. Tennessee has got this more, I'm not going to say the words he said, but kind of orange. It's pretty funny. But I'm going to go with Ohio State. Ohio State, and I've said this all year, maybe it's getting too late. Ohio State has not played that complete game yet, man. I'm talking about against a credible opponent. You agree with that, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to ever do it, it's going to be after losing to your arch rival for the fourth straight year with all these guys that came back to win that game and also play for the national championship. We all remember Denzel Burke in the spring, natty or bust. That still pertains to this team. This team is still quite capable of winning the natty. And but you got to do it one step at a time. And I see these teams as almost a push from a standpoint of rosters. I think Ohio State's a little more talented roster, but not across the board. You know what I mean? Not at every position. So, but I just think Ohio State will hold sway. If you're ever going to play a complete game, why wouldn't it be in this game?
I think I'm leaning toward Ohio State, but I'm teetering, Tim. Teetering.
Like that?
Yeah. So
or like this.
So we'll see.
That's wavering, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm more teetering.
Yeah, you're more up and down. I see.
Yeah, it's in the balance, we'll say.
Yeah.
What's not in the balance, though?
That's like when a guy asked me at Costco this morning after I got done with my radio gig, asked me at Costco and I walked there this afternoon, how's it going? I said, sideways, man, sideways.
I'm currently teetering. I think I'm picking Ohio State, but we will see. We don't have to finalize anything just yet. Next Friday, we have bold predictions for Ohio State, Tennessee. Of course, we'll have Lettermen Live presented by Wendy's. We'll be in the horseshoe, or we'll be in the Alexander.
Wait, let's explain to people why you could be teetering, because we really don't. We're really as curious as everybody else out there to check out what the starting offensive line is going to be and how it plays.
Yeah.
Right. And are they going to put the football? Are they going to put the weight of the game on that still another iteration of the Ohio State offensive line? And is that offensive line going to be able, or are they going to do what they should have done against Michigan and not just attack the teeth of Michigan's defense with the running game, but do some other stuff, right? I mean, that's that's going to intrigue me till I'm done. Is the offensive running game plan Ohio State had against Michigan, where it insisted on attacking the strength of Michigan's team, not just its defense. That will bug me is not the right term, because really I have no goose in that fight. But the bottom line is Ohio State going to put together a game plan that hits them where they ain't, so to speak, or ain't as tough?
Yeah. Well, like I said, we don't have to finalize anything. Next week, we will finalize our predictions at Lettermen Row. We'll do Lettermen Live presented by Wendy's next week. We will talk to Ryan Day a couple times next week. We'll talk to some players, get a feel for what this thing is going to look like. Of course, we'll hear from the Tennessee side as well next week in the lead up to Ohio State versus Tennessee in the Horseshoe next Saturday night, December 21st at 8 p.m. on ABC. You've wanted a night game all season. You're getting a damn night game. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be electric. Lettermen Row will be there every step.
Turn on the damn lights, man.
Lettermen Row will be there every step of the way to cover the Buckeyes. If they win, we'll be in LA to cover the Rose Bowl. If they Pasadena, sorry. If they lose, we'll cover the offseason the way that we covered the season, because that's what we do at lettermenrow.com 365 days a year. That's Tim May, the 41-year vet. I'm just Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to Lettermen Live presented by Wendy's. We'll see you guys next week. We'll see you over in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center next week, and we'll see you until then at lettermenrow.com.